Rebecca. I have the privilege of leading our Work AI Institute at Glean, where we conduct research to understand how organizations are adopting AI and, more importantly, how they can adopt AI more effectively. And so before we tell you more about Glean, the product, we thought we'd share a little bit about what we're seeing in the market, in the data, in terms of how organizations are adopting AI and the challenges they're trying to solve as they adopt and implement it. And so one of the biggest challenges we see organizations face today is what's sometimes called the toggle tax. This is the tax that employees incur when they toggle between app to app to app. Zoom, Google Docs, Asana, Slack, we all feel it. And already what we see is in Fortune 500 companies, workers are switching between apps 1,200 times per day. And so it really does start to feel less like work and more like you're dodging digital pinball. And what we know from the research is that as employees toggle app to app to app, if they become distracted, as they do, which is often the case, it can take them more than 23 minutes to return back to the original task. And so it's this enormous cost to both the employee and also the organization. In many organizations, what we see is, unfortunately, AI is only adding to this cost. This is research we conducted at Glean. We found that already in enterprises, workers are using 150 generative AI tools. And by the end of this year, that's expected to more than double to 356 tools. And so what we know to be true is employees don't want to toggle to another app just to use AI. They want AI that's in the flow of work, it's integrated, it's embedded. In many cases, it's nearly invisible. And that's why more and more companies are gravitating towards a horizontal work AI platform that integrates with all of these various tools and protects workers from this toggle tax. And one of the biggest contributors we see in terms of this toggle tax is that teams so often adopt tools in silos. I think we all feel this, where IT adopts their own tech stack, marketing adopts their own tech stack, sales, and they don't integrate. And so more and more of our time is spent trying to integrate these technologies. And this is alongside changes in terms of how we work. We're collaborating more and more over the past 2 to 3 decades. The amount of time we spend collaborating and collaborating cross-functionally has increased by more than 50%. And so that's another reason why we need tools and AI tools that don't just work in silos, but really work across functions. And so as you're evaluating vendors, we think it's important to ask and pressure test how well they do enable cross-functional work. On Glean, what we see is 56%, well over half of all work is cross-functional, right? It spans different teams and departments. And that cross-functional work we know is essential. All of our most important work, our most important workflows span different functional groups. And so having that horizontal AI platform that works for your employees is not just essential to minimizing the toggle tax, but also essential to getting our most important work done and done together. And so with that, I'll let Robert tell you a bit more about Glean and what we're building and why we're excited about it. Robert, the stage is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Rebecca. All right, so I think you did a really good job at kind of framing the problem. What I want to do is dive deeper into Glean's overall mission and how exactly we're kind of tackling everything. Now, when you look at the AI landscape, basically everyone's sort of working towards this concept of superintelligence, that's systems that are smarter than the average human. And so what we're trying to do at Glean is kind of bring superintelligence to the enterprise. And so really this is just finding ways to use AI to out-execute your competition in terms of efficiency. Now, when you look at companies kind of undergoing that transformation towards superintelligence, there's kind of two sides to the equation, two things that are going on. That's using AI to drive revenue, finding ways to reimagine the customer experience so that you can ship and iterate products faster, and also reinvent that customer experience in order to better build loyalty. On the flip side, there's a strong belief that AI can help decrease OpEx. So that's using it to decrease customer acquisition costs, support costs, and also decreasing back office software and operational costs, things that you might have before looked to outsource or offshore. The key goal here is dollars per employee. How can I drive higher revenue using the same number of employees or fewer, working more efficiently with AI? Now, when it all comes together, we kind of see this evolutionary process within a company follow a common trajectory across both employees and departments. On both sides, what we see is employees and departments start to work a lot faster with their existing tasks. How can I speed things up with my day-to-day and do what I already do faster? Then they kind of start to level up and deflect existing work up until the point where that sort of light bulb moment hits and they realize that I can actually start to use AI in ways that wasn't possible before. I can make use of data with every decision I make. Think mass analysis of customers in bulk. The final rung happens when people and organizations start deploying personal agents to do work on their behalf. This is where AI gets proactive and it's not helping you, it's doing work for you. That's when you get closer to that 10x output employee and when management can start to rethink organizations and new processes in ways that better increase the overall output. Now, Glean has had the privilege of working with a lot of different companies. I'm seeing a lot of success stories across the board here. A couple of logos to call out, Citigroup, for example, was able to reimagine the way that they serve customers in their wealth management business. Other examples of efficiency are, Uber was able to deliver dramatic improvements in their engineering productivity, amounting to over $200 million in savings. When I look across the board, these are all companies that are well on their way and on that path to becoming super intelligent enterprises. Now, to give you a little more context on the technology under the hood, basically, Glean started as an enterprise search company, first indexing company content. Then what we started to do differently was layer in levels of rich metadata and behavioral signals to improve the search, things like clicks, views, and edits on documents. More crucially, we started to layer in the relationships between people and that content to better infer what matters to the individual person. This kind of evolving web of people, documents, projects, customers, activities going on within an organization became what we call the knowledge graph. We've since added personal graphs to capture each employee's work patterns and processes. Up until today, Glean uses hundreds and hundreds of signals across all different systems to power a true system of context. So the answers and recommendations are uniquely relevant and timely. So that knowledge graph that I showed combines together with our regular search index to create Glean Search. That's the foundation of our Work AI platform. So Glean Search is then built with a rich layer of enterprise protection, permissions awareness, and security. And those two come together to then power our different products and use cases. From there, there's kind of three ways that customers take advantage of Glean and deploy it within their organization. I've got a demo ready for you guys after this, but just to summarize, the first way is with Glean Assistant. The concept is pretty simple. It's a conversational assistant that has that really rich understanding of the context of what you do at work and your company's data. And it kind of acts as your sort of personal chief of staff, brainstorm buddy, or basically the smartest coworker at your side as you have that back and forth asking questions and solving tasks in your day-to-day. The second way that Glean is used is with our agent platform. So with agents, you can take those daily or weekly tasks that are repetitive, maybe a bit more complicated than just using Assistant, boil them down to a set of repeatable steps, and then have the LLM reasoning capabilities complete that task. Building agents is super straightforward. People of all levels of sophistication can do it. Finally, that third way that Glean is used is by basically empowering developers to build more complex agents safely with enterprise security and the permissioning of Glean. So this kind of takes agents a step further, allowing developers to build out custom agents with tooling, data sources, even MCP servers unique to their company, all with Glean's powerful search capabilities powering everything under the hood. All right, so that was kind of my intro. I'll get into a demo now for you all. I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right, so for this demo, what I'm going to do is basically walk through a search example and then get into the assistant, and then I'll show you guys a couple agents. So right off the bat, what we see here is the Glean homepage, and it's a signed on experience through SSO. And I actually have the Glean browser extension enabled, so every time I open a new tab, I'm actually brought to this page. And we found that this really helps drive adoption because as I open a new tab, I'm here seeing the Glean homepage with everything kind of tailored for me, and it really becomes a habit. So the first thing that I'm going to do is search a fictitious company at Glean called Fraser Automotive. So here we have the search engine results page, and I want to draw your attention to a couple things. First of all, on the right, we see that Glean found over 700 results across a variety of different data sources. So Glean was able to search across Confluence, Google Drive, GitHub, Gong, etc. It's pulled all those documents across those data sources here. And then from those results, it's determined that these are the most relevant results to me, Robert, the solution engineer. Now, Glean's kind of goal at the end of the day is that you're never going to have to go past the first 3 or 4 search results because it has a unique understanding of who I am, where I work within my organization, and all the things going on. That kind of comes back to that knowledge graph that I mentioned. And so maybe if I was somebody in marketing, I would see perhaps press releases, or somebody in engineering, more GitHub URLs. This is everything that would be useful to me, the solution engineer, doing my day-to-day to support the sales team. A couple other things to call out. So on top of that knowledge graph, Glean uses all those different metadata signals. So for a Google Doc, for example, there could be 60 different signals to tell Glean what's more relevant. You know, what are the comments on that document? When was the last time it was edited? How many people have accessed it? All really rich, useful signals. 2 other things to call out are that Glean also builds a semantic index where we learn the internal terminology, acronyms, language you use within your company. We also build a permissions index, which is really important, which enforces permissions. So that means that this Salesforce document right here, I can only see it in Glean because I have access to it. If I didn't have access to this Salesforce document, I wouldn't be able to see it. And that's all enforced through our permissions index, ensuring that people only see what they're supposed to see. So that was a search example. What I'll do is ask it a bit more of a natural language question. What is the process of submitting a PR? And so Glean here is kind of understanding, I don't really just want search results. Maybe I want an answer. So different from that last page, we see that we have the assistant experience start to come into play. And it's actually summarized the answer for me. So again, it found 67,000 results across a variety of different documents. And if we scroll to the bottom of this answer, we'll see that we've got 3 docs here, a couple Confluence pages. Glean determined these were the most relevant to my question, and it used them to summarize the answer for me. We can see that it actually cited the sources in line. So as a user, I can go back and see where the information was retrieved to help build a better understanding. And overall, this is really how the assistant experience starts to become really powerful, because it would have taken me a long time to have searched across these 3 documents to find that information. Glean Assistant just brings it all to me together at once. Now, what I can do is go ahead and ask it a follow-up question. How do I resolve conflicts? And now we can see I'm brought into more of a ChatGPT chat-like experience. This is where Assistant is normally accessed through this chat tab. And a couple things going on here. First of all, we see that the previous question that I asked is at the beginning of the chat. In here we have the new question. I'm not sure if it will show in the thinking, but essentially Glean Assistant is grabbing new information, that's new documents different from these first 3, and then passing them through the same context window so I can have that back and forth using new information each time. The chat experience can really start to get powerful here as you ask follow-up questions. You know, hey, what did you mean by that? Your feature branch. Kind of talk to it like you would talk to any normal coworker using natural language. A couple other things I didn't mention, but from that semantic index, Glean was able to tell that when I said PR as a solution engineer, I'm probably referring to pull request rather than maybe press release if I was in marketing. Now, as I scroll to the bottom, it's still finishing, but another thing to call out is that you can actually toggle the data sources that you're searching, that the assistant is using. And so maybe I'm a developer in my day-to-day. I like to use ChatGPT or Claude to write code. I could replicate that experience by turning off the company data. Let's only use that underlying LLM to search the web, write me some code. Then if I wanted it to, let's say, match the style guidelines internally at my company, I could turn that company source back on, have it call that document defining our style guidelines, and again, continue to have that powerful back and forth all within the same context window. So that's Assistant. Next, what I want to do is show you guys some agent examples. And I'm going to do that by starting off with another assistant example. So let's say for this use case, I'm a support engineer working on call, and maybe somebody's reached out about the Slack dispatch failed issue. So I've already got a question saved here. And let's say somebody's reached out about this issue. I'm used to using Glean. I go to Assistant and say, hey, search across these data sources. Give me some action items on how I can debug the Slack dispatch failed issue, and also point me to some subject matter experts in case I need to escalate. So you can start to get your queries to the assistant a lot more complicated like this, but this might actually be a good use case for agents. When you think about moving up that trajectory to becoming a super intelligent enterprise, how can I automate these repeatable tasks to start getting AI to do work for me? And so that's what we're going to do. This is really probably a better use case for an agent. So what I'm going to do is go to the agents tab, or well, first of all, I could have sent that in and I'd probably get a pretty good answer, but again, it's repeatable. So before I get into that agent, just show you really quick here, this is our agents tab. You can see a variety of agents across the company, how many times they've been used, which ones are more popular. You can filter by the creator, a couple different ways to filter. You can also create a new agent here. And so you can create from a couple different templates that already exist. And there's also the ability to kind of have writer's block to explain what you want the agent to do. And AI will generate a draft and get you kind of 70% of the way there. But what I'm going to do is show you guys that engineering on-call agent. And so here we're going to look at, again, that Slack dispatch failed issue. Normally, I would click run, but I'm going to show you guys the setup here. And really, the agent is designed to emulate exactly what I kind of described in that first query. We're going to take as input the issue, so that's Slack dispatch failed. Then we're just going to tell it to do a company search across Jira, G Drive, all these sources where I could find information on the issue. There's a couple bells and whistles for how I can kind of edit and tweak this search. You can toggle the number of search results. You can actually change the LLM underlying here, which can be really powerful. But after that company search, I'm also going to run this expert search where it's going to look up people within your company who've written on a certain issue, because that can always be super helpful if you don't know how to solve a problem. You know, who's worked on this before, who has that kind of internal tribal knowledge. Then that final step is going to be a respond step. So this is where a lot of the prompt engineering kind of comes into play. I could be really simple here just to get a working agent MVP off the ground and say, hey, from these search results, summarize the next steps for a support engineer. But I want to be a bit more detailed. And so here we say, you know, you're assisting an on-call software engineer. I want the following output. Give me the context, expected action items, create a table of past similar issues and include the links so I can refer to those. And then give me that table with the subject matter experts, all kind of really well described in the response step. So I'll go back and I can run this agent. And as it starts to run, you'll see it's working through those steps that I showed you before. It might take a second. So what I'll do is actually share a different tab where I have the answer already displayed. And so here we see that the agent's given me back exactly what I asked for. We've got the context, action items, related issues. So I can quickly kind of click on the link, understand, hey, this issue happened with this Jira ticket. Is that similar? Was there a same use case? Subject matter experts. Also want to call out that Glean actually looked at 171 different sources here. That's a huge number of documents. And so you can quickly to see how you can start to deploy kind of swarms of agents within your organization here for the on-call engineering support team to do a lot of work that wasn't possible before with AI. If I'm dealing with a really big backlog, I wouldn't have had time to search across, you know, all of these tickets, pull together all this information. Glean's able to do that for me. I can even ask follow-up questions here and kind of get back into that assistant experience. But what I'm going to do next, actually, is show you guys another example of an agent where, you know, engineering on-call support is just one example, but Glean can help across departments, kind of like Rebecca was saying. So let's talk about a sales use case as well. So what I'll do is go back to the agents tab and I'll look up sales account snapshot. So this is just one good example of an agent that could help the go-to-market organization. So maybe you're an AE and you're managing a really big portfolio. You know, you have a lot of meetings for the day and you don't have the time to get that context that you need on a particular customer. How can you quickly get kind of a 360 view of the account? So we're going to use Fraser Automotive again. Here's the agent setup. And really, it's super simple. You're just going to input the prospect. We're going to tell Glean to then do a company search across all the Gong transcripts, We'll look at Slack, Zendesk, Salesforce, and then we'll tell it to respond. And we're going to give it a lot of context here. You're tasked with helping Glean account executives and their managers understand the current state of the account. And, we have a lot of different sections that we wanted to show. I'm not going to read through these. What I'll go ahead and do is run this agent. And we see it's running through the steps again. And I also have the answer saved, of course, because it might take a second to run. So here we see, similar to that engineering on-call example, we've got all the different pieces of information that we asked for: current status of the account, challenges, pain points. We also have a nice table with the risk to the deal closing, prospective contacts, and then you keep going. We're looking at all the summaries of the past calls with the prospect. Here are open support tickets, AE action items, SE action items. And so the health of a particular sales prospect is going to be related to issues and things happening across the entire department, not just issues with the AE. And that all really informs the relationship with the prospect. Glean enables you to pull all of that context together for the AE and really get that full 360 view. And then even going on from there, there's a whole bunch of different ways where you could edit and tweak these agents to better serve your purposes. You can actually have them directly take action. So what if I wanted the agent to just draft a follow-up email? If I give it a Gong transcript link, for example, maybe I want it to just create a pre-read for me for an upcoming meeting, and I want to know what the expected questions and objections they might have would be, and then how I can respond to those. So there's a whole bunch of ways where you can start to see agents being really powerful to scale up your organization to becoming super intelligent, starting to deploy them to solve tasks and problems that weren't possible before AI. And that is kind of the last agent I have for you guys today. We can end it now with questions, I think.
Okay, thank you so much, Robert. More demo day. I love it. I love seeing what Glean can do in real life. Just fantastic stuff. I think we do have time for a question here that we're going to get to. And the question is this for you, Robert, and it comes from Paul, who always asks so many good questions on our events. And Paul wants to know, what is Glean's approach to AI model data freshness, especially with evolving API rate limits and quotas? Great question.
Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to keeping data fresh, Glean has typically relied on webhooks. And so obviously, whenever you make a change to a document within your organization or changes to permissions, we're constantly in real time updating that information within the Glean index. And so again, webhooks, when there's a change to a permission, for example, we're going to prioritize that and make sure that customers only see the documents that they have access to. When changes to content happen, could happen within minutes. Perhaps you've added a new Google Doc or re-indexed a new data source. All that is going to happen pretty much in real time.
Okay.